Thank you, everybody, for coming. It is Thursday, November 13th. The Town of North Smithfield Planning Board is called to order. Next item on the agenda is roll call. Dr. Roberts.
Here.
Ms. Ramos.
Here.
And the chair is here. Item 3, minutes. Review and approval of the October 9th, 2025 meeting minutes. If there are any comments, otherwise we'll look for a motion to approve. And don't fight each other for making motions tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Item 4, disclosure. Planning board members shall disclose potential conflicts on matters before the planning board this evening. Any disclosures between the three of us?
Nope.
Okay. And then disclosure and notice. Planning board members shall disclose any ex parte communications about any contested or material adjudicatory facts or opinions concerning the merits of any application before the planning board. Anything there?
Nope.
Okay. Declaration of voting members. What you see is what you get tonight, the three of us that are here. And then we'll move right into item number 7, public hearing for the Unified Development Review of 4 Antea Drive. Mr. Cruel, you want to give us an introduction on that one?
Mr. Chairman, this is an oversized lot in a residential RS zoning district. The lot is approximately 10,000 square feet short of 2 full-size lots. The applicant is here this evening, and they are requesting to subdivide the lot to create 2 undersized lots, as you can see on the graphic. The surrounding properties here on Antonia Drive are all undersized lots, and the 2 proposed lots are about 3 times larger than the pre-existing lots there. So the planning office has determined that it is consistent with the surrounding area. While the lots are slightly short of the maximum requirement, they exceed the lots in the surrounding area. I think the applicant is here to make a presentation to the board. This requires zoning relief for less than required lot area only. It meets all frontage, all setbacks, all other requirements in the zoning code.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Josh Huamaro, and I'm with Insight Engineers, representing the applicant to discuss the subdivision. I don't really have much to add aside from that intro. I think it's pretty straightforward. What we're applying for is a subdivision, a 2-lot subdivision with an oversized lot. My only comment to add to his was the existing lot's 2.5 times greater than those on the road. So there is room to subdivide that, especially with regard to the neighborhood. Zoning is RS, and we are proposing 35,000 square feet and of 40,000 square foot minimum. And that's what we're applying for. Questions?
Yeah, does the board have any questions?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't have
That 20-foot wide drive that's over to the left on our plan that we're looking at, is that paper street right now?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, is that paved? Oh, that just got paved.
Okay. Mark, do we know what that connects to?
What
Oh, it's a
are we
dead end.
referring to here, Jeff?
The one that's running north-south.
Oh, north-south right there? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a paper street, so it doesn't
Okay.
really connect
Yeah.
anywhere. So coming off of Providence Pike, it's paved from Providence Pike all the way to probably the end of where you see the extreme limit of
Yeah.
the house.
Yep.
So there is frontage on Antonia Drive for the existing house, and on the proposed lot, there's frontage along Providence Pike, and then coming up, that paved area, I'm going to call that an easement on Antonia Drive. So the corner lot has pavement on both corners, and the pre-existing house lot has sufficient frontage on Antonia Drive, and they're correct. That road was just paved within the last year.
Okay. Great. All right, then, if there are no comments from the board, I'll open up the public hearing. So I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody for the public hearing? Make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So then, for the purposes of this one, for the first part of this application, I'll make a motion that we grant the requested zoning relief of Section 340, Attachment 3, residential and non-residential district regulations table to have less than the required lot area, 40,000 square feet required, and 35,008 square feet proposed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Did you need to jump in?
I just would want you to adopt the findings
Okay,
of the planning board's report as your findings
okay,
in order to support that motion and vote.
okay. Then I will amend my motion to include the planning board department's, the planning department's recommendations on that. And then I need a second from you
Have a
again.
second.
Okay, so we have an amended motion with an amended second. Roll call vote. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So then we are on to item 8, for the minor subdivision. So I will make a motion to, let's see, to approve to approve the subdivided existing lot with the 2 undersized lots, and also incorporate the planning office's findings and recommendations.
Perfect.
Second.
We have a second. So roll call vote for that. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much. All right, now we are on to item 9. Public hearing, Unified Development Review for M&M Transport Service.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the zoning board, planning board, Attorney Matthew Landry from the Office of Blish and Kavanaugh on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by Damian Dimitrick from Conoco Engineering, as well as Brian Klingler. I'm going to have them speak briefly on the site improvements, the overall site plan and stormwater design. Brian can comment briefly on the enviro tank that's being proposed. I know there were some questions that came up during the pre-application back in August. There's a lot of history and background with this application. I know Damian and the board had heard some information, preliminary information at the pre-app. Just in short, the history here is that it is a trucking motor freight facility that is a permitted use in the manufacturing zone. There was a lot of history and some zoning violations, historic violations prior to and subject to when my client purchased the property. Unbeknownst to him at the time he had acquired the property, there was a 1995 zoning board decision that had a number of conditions and stipulations of approval that related to impervious pavement in the rear of the building. The building was constructed within the side yard setback. There were also some conditions that there be some landscaping and vegetative buffering with the nearby properties. He proceeded after purchasing the property to construct a accessory fueling facility to accommodate the trucking facility that was ongoing on site. There's also some maintenance activities there. Because the fueling aspect of this is accessory to a principal use, it was deemed, or in his estimation, to be acceptable as an accessory use, proceeding, unknowing with this 1995 dezoning restrictions that were in place. So there were a number of hearings before the zoning board, well before my time, that had proceeded, and there were subsequent applications submitted in conjunction with the development that took place on the property. with that fueling facility. That includes the installation of some impervious pavement, some concrete fueling pads, and a 10,000-gallon Enviro tank, above-ground tank that is currently empty. So we're here before you to ask for relief under the Unified Development Review process to get relief from those 1995 zoning restrictions as to impervious pavement and in order to install the fueling tank. This isn't a watershed overlay protection district, so there is some additional provisions. I think at the time that this had initially been constructed, it wasn't within that district, or it was exempted, and now we're falling under a different purview. And at the time it was constructed by the previous owner, at least some of the improvements, there was discussions with the then building official that they could proceed at their own risk, and I think some of that discussion took place during the pre-application hearing. So that's why we're here. He's proceeding under the Unified Development mechanism to get relief from the zoning and to get relief under the Watershed Protection District Development Plan review. So the main concerns that came up with the pre-application that Damien had fielded were some redundancy systems for that tank. There were concerns over the how to control spillage in event of a catastrophe, or if something happened, what's the worst case scenario. Damien has presented the board with some secondary and tertiary systems that will control, worst possible case for spillage. The Enviro tank specs have been included in the submission. As you can see, these things are almost bomb-proof. They're double-walled concrete. They're above ground, have spill leak detection features on them. So in and of itself, these systems are designed to be well contained and control spillage. Visual inspection, obviously, because they're above ground, so there are some redundant systems there. Conoco has designed some positive limiting barriers to be installed within those concrete pads. Those are commonly seen at fueling stations. Those have the ability to control a lot of overflow if there is a spill in and of itself. And then Damien can get into some of the other systems. There's a trench drain around the perimeter of that to catch anything else if it were to overflow from those protective systems. And as Damien can attest to, this is not subject to DEM regulation. There are 3 triggers to DEM's review. We have received correspondence from them confirming that this is not subject to their jurisdiction because we're not within wetlands, not disturbing more than an acre of land, and there's no underground infiltration systems proposed. So I'll let Damien speak to that specifically. But as for the tank specs, I'll have Brian come up after there's some testimony as to the site improvement. So Damien, that might be a good segue if you could come up and just present to the board as to what the proposed site improvements are going to be and some of the additional systems.
Do you mind just expanding the name, just so I can give you the right, just the column, so that I can see all the name, the complete name? Just grab the bar next to date, modified. Nope, other side. Right. You're good. All right. So then, can you open up the stamped plans, the capitalized? It's probably the 4th one down right there. Awesome, thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Matt. Restate, Damien Dimitrick, Conoco Engineers and Scientists for First Street, Bridgewater, Massachusetts. I'll have you scroll to sheet 2, or actually sheet 2. So again, as I presented at the previous site, this is the previous site conditions. This is what the site looked like prior to any of the construction there. Current construction, existing building there, existing transportation use. You can scroll to sheet 3. This is what the current site looks like. It's a little, if you could zoom in just a little, it's just fuzzy. There we go. Again, there was some expansion of the pavement in the rear of the parcel. The fueling tanks, the concrete pads are all in the back. Same existed, septic system was upgraded, and just generally a pavement was increased to the site from what the previous site conditions were. So next, going into the proposed design, or what we're coming back with for the final component of the site. If you can go to sheet 4.
So what we're gonna be doing, from the site, from what the previous site conditions are, is we're removing pavement, concrete, Jersey barriers, other things that had encroached across the property line. Our client wasn't aware of that stuff at the time. This was all stuff that was presented at the pre-app meeting as well. So just kind of reiterating, given the revised submission, trying to run through it quickly. We'll be adding the positive limiting barriers. So this is sheet 4, go down to the next one, I apologize. Sheet 5 here. You can see in here, on the next sheet, I have a zoom in of the tanks and what's around there. But we're adding positive limiting barriers. Those are the grooves that are in the, around gas stations. You see them there. Their size to catch any leak or runoff that comes from fueling operations. And then, additionally, the drainage plans, where we added some additional components that from the previous set, we've added some additional things to help with the drainage and systems there. Previously, we just had, some catch basins, a little trench drain, and some smaller stuff. What we're actually adding some more detail to that, to make that system function more properly, is we're actually adding a trench drain that surrounds the entirety of the concrete pad. Zoom to sheet 6, right here. So this is a zoom in around the concrete pad, right, and what the actual fueling area will be. So pausing living barriers are obviously easier to tell here. That's the grooves, those are actually size spaced, all done calculations, those were supplied in the memo to meet the requirements of the fueling. And what you can see around here, the perimeter, this is actually an additional 8-inch trench drain. It surrounds the entirety of the fueling tank and the fueling pad. So that's an additional stormwater control, that any water that hits the surface around that tank, the fueling areas will be captured into that trench drain and then sent off the edge here to the drainage system, which, if we can go back to sheet 5, collects at this corner right here and goes down to, and again, difficult to read on this plan, a water quality unit, a storm scepter 450i, which is sized for this volume. We included the spec sheet or a cut sheet for that. The way that works, it's an oil water grit separator. Water enters the system, isn't allowed to see, oils, gases float to the top, everything else settles to the bottom, right? That's your initial component of separation and treatment of the water quality. From there, it enters, these are actually 2 proposed deep sump hooded catch basins. So the deep sumps are, 4 feet below the invert. Sediment has space to settle out there. And then we have the hooded outlet on those, right? Obviously, same idea, same general concepts, right? We're preventing oils and greases from going out by the hood, the pipe that goes down, and water flows out that way. So those are some additional features that we had from the previous submission, or the pre-app meeting. DEP has supplied as the email, the written recommendation that, as Matt had stated, that, there is no stormwater requirements for this site. Out of fresh water, not disturbing a large amount of area, and no underground infiltration. All of these components are surface components to treat the water, contain any contaminants before it leaves the site. So those are the components associated with the stormwater that we've upgraded from the last submission. And if we can actually go down back to the zoom in here, there was a lot of concern at the last meeting in regards to protecting the actual tank and making sure that there isn't any way that, it's driven into, security measures, all of those things. So what we've added to is we've put in Jersey barriers around the entire perimeter at the property line, right? So there's parking along this edge. You can see the signs. They have to go through a Jersey barrier, a set of bollards, and then hit a concrete tank. So, there's a significant amount of protection of the tank in that fashion. Additionally, we'd added a Jersey barrier in front of the tank, as requested at the board at the last meeting, right? So these are, all physical things that will stop it. There's also a lamp post in front. There's a lot that someone's gonna have to go through before they can make contact with this tank. So all of those components protecting the tank have really added support to the system, really ensure that there is no cause for concern in regards to a major catastrophe in regards to spilling. If you could actually, back to the list of sheets that I had there, the folder. Awesome. And then we have the EnviroVault It's the third one from the bottom. Nope. Awesome. Yeah, so here's the spec sheet that was supplied to the board prior to this. I think it's, important. I'd like to highlight some of the components here, scroll down, that are stated in the specs, right? It's fire resistant, vehicle impact, integral in earthquake and hurricane tie downs, and ballistic rated. This thing is a vault. It's an environmental vault. It's very difficult to get through. Meets all the requirements for secondary containment, leak monitoring, spill containment, overflow protection. The tank itself is just designed not to have leaks, to contain the runoff, to protect it from that. It's 6 inches of lightweight concrete that protect the inner and outer tanks, provide a minimum of 2-hour fire rating. Steel support channel allow for visual inspection of the bottom of the tank, right? All of these tertiary components in above ground tank, if there is a spill, you're going to see it, right? It's not an underground tank where, if there's a leak or a spill, it goes unseen and leaking into it. It's an above ground tank. So, I hope and believe, with the board, that all of these additional provisions, the components that we added with stormwater, that we can allow this, the site to go as constructed, and, they can start filling their tanks and using it from there. So, with that, end the kind of presentation of what we got. I'll turn it back over to the board, or if there was any more conversation you want to have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
No questions, but I do appreciate the extra efforts and work that you've put into for the containment, because I think that was definitely a concern with the original plan. So thank you for that.
I have a question. When you talked about and showed us the layers of protection, I remember Dr. Benoit had requested, I don't know what it's called, but like an impervious, almost like rubber under sort of.
Yeah, so he had mentioned a bladder system.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those don't necessarily work for above ground storage tanks. I think the application that he was referring to was for an underground storage tank where there would be that tertiary level needed. You don't see that, but to add a tertiary level of containment, like complete containment, we're basically building another tank around our 2 existing tanks, because otherwise the stormwater would collect in that in that tertiary containment, right? The bladder system doesn't work, right? Because any rain's going to hit, it's going to collect into that tertiary containment and then get collected and held in there. So then you have to empty that between each store, and it's counterproductive. I think our trench drain system that allows stormwater to run off, and it'll collect and prevent water and fuel from escaping into the environment uncontrolled in the event of a spill, right? It has to go into our stormwater systems. It has to go into the water quality units through the catch basins. That is another level of containment. It's not the complete 10,000 gallon tertiary bladder containment that Mr. Benet was mentioning at the last meeting, but I think it does, represent kind of that third level, in a system that, would help make it more compliant in that regard.
Do we have a point where we discuss this as a board? Because I don't think I have more questions related to that, but I would want to discuss that at some point.
We can do that right now.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's actually over an aquifer overlay district, not just watersheds. It's drinking water. And residents are very concerned about our aquifer district. And 10,000 gallons is I think a swimming pool. And so I'm just thinking, I have been thinking about this since the last time you were here. And I was thinking of the berm and the rubber, thing that Doc was talking about. So if there were a leak, it sounds like there's a filtration system where some of it would go into, but what about if there were a significant leak that was not seen quickly enough? What happens to the oil or the gas that comes out?
Sure, I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm Brian Klingler. I'm a principal environmental at Conoco Environmental Engineers and Scientists. I'm a PG and an LSP. the point of having an above-ground storage tank, and the biggest advantage of it being above ground versus historic releases with underground storage tanks, is you can visually inspect it. This has steel channels underneath the tank itself so that the bottom of the tank can actually be inspected during the course of the use of the tank. So it's not like it can be impervious and have releases to the aquifer that would go undetected. Everything above this is above ground. Everything, any release you would have, which under a secondary containment, this is a steel tank and then a concrete wall barrier and then a second steel tank and then an 18 mil polymer coating. So you have 4 layers of protection. You can see the bottom of the tank. Any spill that would occur at the worst would be a pull away on the line, and that is an automatic shut off protection. So you're dealing with a 10-gallon release at best if that were to ever occur. And obviously there's contingencies upon that. But there is no way for this tank to leak short of a ballistic. I mean, it's ballistic proof, so we could go down scenarios where you could have a release of that large scale, but I don't see how that would happen because it has both fire protections, impact protections, it's bermed. It is really state of the art. So you can go down so many levels and hypotheticals. But I did a study out there where we put 3 monitoring wells. So we have looked at the aquifer. It's non-detect in terms of soil. It's non-detect in terms of groundwater. You can drink the water underneath this tank in this facility. It is a maintenance facility, so it's a good stewardship currently right now with the ownership. They take it very seriously. So we will be able to monitor the aquifer. And in terms of a cataclysmic release, I just don't see it occurring.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear your explanation.
If I could just also add, I think you mentioned that the catch basin did have the capacity if there was a catastrophic spill to absorb the 10,000 gallons. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
So the catch basin systems aren't sized for that. You know, it's not like, they're for stormwater. The bottoms, the sumps within those are meant to collect and hold stormwater and actually allow for sediment to settle out to the bottom. There is a component of the catch basins that will prevent oil during standard leaks and things like that from continuing into, out the stormwater flow paths. And those need to be cleaned and maintained and monitored. And if there is the event of the spill, again, as Brian, there's so many contingencies that, the on-site maintenance crew needs to perform to prevent that from getting into the catch basins. The catch basins will need to be cleaned in those cases, right? But they're not sized to hold the entire 10,000 gallons because if that was the scenario, that 10,000 gallons would just fill up with stormwater, right? And then that void space doesn't exist. So that's what, from a stormwater perspective of how that works, the tertiary system, it doesn't work because stormwater is going to fill up that void and prevent, any containment in that event. Does that make more sense?
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other comments from the board at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. So I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we have the public hearing opened at, Gary likes to do the time, 7:30. If there's any comments? Going once? All right. Make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So first item that we have to do for this application is to request the zoning relief that's been outlined by the planning department in our packets. Are there any questions
No.
in regards to that?
It's more of a comment, and if now is not the right time to say it, let me know and I'll say it another time. I just want it known for the record as a resident and a member of this board that I'm not happy that a previous employee of our town encouraged the owner to proceed at their own risk. I think that's really bad business, and it's not looking out for the well-being of our community, and it's not in line, to my understanding, with how we should do business. And I realize it happened, and then the I don't want to say remediations, but the approaches are attempting to be faithful to as well as we can expect, but I'm just not happy that it happened in that order. And I'm saying it for the record because I don't want that to happen in the future. And as residents, I feel like we should make that be known that we're not happy that the employees of our town acted that way. And they're not here anymore, so they can't even be accountable to that. And so I just want to say that publicly.
Okay. All right. So then if there's, thank you for that, Dr. Roberts. If there's no other comment at this point, I'll make a motion that we request the following zoning relief. The relief to the North Smithfield zoning code, article, is that 15? I'm not good with Roman numerals, so forgive me. Water supply protection overlay district classifies a proposal use as a special use permit. The water supply protection overlay section 340-4.463 limits the maximum lot coverage in the manufacturing zone to 40%. The zoning section 340 attachment 2 district use table use code G4A fueling facility accessory use classifies this use as a special use permit in the M zone. Zoning section 340-4.8A states no accessory building or structure can be within 10 feet of any property line. And relief from the 1995 zoning board decision to require including screening and to prohibit impervious area to the rear of the building, as well as the recommendations and findings by the planning department. So that's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Does that take care of the special use permit, or do we need to do this?
You should make a motion to accept the planning department's findings and recommendation on the special use permit.
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Roll call vote. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Now, the third action would be with regard to the land development project, and that is approving as presented the project to be constructed in accordance with the plans and renderings presented, as well as adopting the planning department's findings and recommendations.
All right. Are there any further comments for
I
that?
have a question.
Mhm.
This has to do with, I understand that those 3 triggers that would get DEM involved are not present. And I assume that there is like a method of regularly checking on this, that it's not leaking, et cetera. Is that a standard protocol that DEM puts out? Or like who determines what the regular checking of this facility is to make sure it's not leaking? And
So, and these guys can jump in if they want to add. There is a registration process with DEM, even for above-ground storage tanks. So that's one checks and balance. There's also, typically you could have a maintenance manual that we could submit that ensures that there's regular maintenance at specific intervals for the trench drains. That's standard practice. It's not as intense as a stormwater operation and maintenance manual, but we could certainly agree to a maintenance manual to make sure that those happen, and there's something on file with planning to make sure that that's enforceable.
Yeah, that looks like it's
Yeah, please. Right.
stipulation number 2.
Also, I would
It's in
say on
there.
a federal level,
Okay.
the site is subject to a spill prevention, counter control, and countermeasure plan, and that is an annual review process that we do at Conoco, and it needs to be updated. So there is an SPCC plan for the property, and that's on a federal level what you do to monitor the tank.
okay. Thank you.
Mark, would it be worth adding that as a stipulation that report gets provided to the planning department?
I would say that would be a reasonable stipulation if they're doing it anyway, and providing that as a federal regulation, they could certainly provide that. So I would amend Well, I would add, similar to stipulation number 2 with the stormwater management, that they also provide that annual reporting to the federal agency to the,
Yep. Does the applicant have any objections to that? No objection. Okay.
I think the other related piece, because I think it's different from the federal plan, is the maintenance manual that you were referring to, that I think you said you would be willing to submit it to the planning office.
Yeah, there's no objection to that. It's pretty standard, so we're happy to do
Okay.
tank maintenance manual.
Okay, thank you.
So I would ask that we could perhaps combine that stipulation to provide the maintenance manual as well as the annual reporting to the planning department.
Okay. All right, any further discussions? All right. I'll make a motion to approve the land development project incorporating the planning office findings and the stipulations that, and recommendations that are outlined in our memo here, with the addition of the additional stipulation that was just mentioned with the federal requirements and maintenance plans.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Ramos,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. All right. Item number 11. Any administrative subdivisions? Perfect. I'm a little disappointed that Doc's not here for his favorite part. All right, item number 12, adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good job, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.